In this video, I'm going to tell you how to stop the growth of your pile of shame by ignoring your goblin brain. That rhymes. It hasn't really snowed here in Wisconsin much at all this winter, which is kind of weird. It seems like nature's trying to get it all in during just this week, so I kind of thought I'd try and record from my new office here in the sunroom, which you've probably seen if you've watched the most recent Every Other Sunday show, here on YouTube. But there's still gonna likely be as much road noise as there is the regular studio. But probably no motorcycles driving out in the snow. Probably. This video idea comes from a recent Every Other Sunday show episode where I asked for new video topics aimed at new hobbyists and players, but it's also important for hobby veterans as well. Whether you're new to the hobby or you've been doing it for a long time, know this. More than ever before, the miniature wargames hobby is designed to sell you more miniatures. More miniatures, more often. This can be both good and bad. Marketing can be a hell of a drug. I should know I've worked in and around marketing in my day job for 25 plus years now at this point. Good marketing, well, maybe effective is the more apt word instead of good, right? It's designed to get you buying and keep you buying. And as you probably know, it's far quicker to buy new miniatures than it is to build and paint them. And it costs much more to buy them than it does to build and paint them. But there's that endorphin rush that you get, when you buy new miniatures, right? And why shouldn't I have it? That whole kind of thing. That probably sounds familiar to many of you. I've heard that voice in my head as well. A lot of marketing depends upon the new shiny, right? And fear of missing out, or FOMO as it's frequently called. And who, as gamers, do we know to be mainly driven by their love for shiny things and by fear? Goblins. As miniature hobbyists, most of us have an inner goblin, or you could maybe call it a goblin brain, when it comes to our hobby. Try this little thought experiment with me, right? So when you start thinking about some miniatures that you want, right, because they're super, super cool or whatever the deal is, right, and you don't have them yet, does the thought of finally getting them into your possession make you happy or excited, right? Do you even need them for a project right now, like an army that you're building or anything like that? If not, goblin brain. And then there's this experiment. Think about some big upcoming product from Games Workshop or whatever company that you prefer, that'll be coming out very soon, right? Maybe it's a brand new box game or like a really cool vehicle or some piece of terrain or whatever, right? But it sounds like there might not be enough. They might be in limited quantities and you want it, but you might not be able to get it. What's that you're feeling there, right? Fear. Again, that's your goblin brain. Goblin brain isn't all bad. Outside of the hobby, in the real world, right, it has some of its roots in survival psychology. Goblins in fantasy settings are so pervasive and tough to wipe out because of their natural instincts to always gather more resources and listen to their fear response. These things keep them alive and flourishing in imaginary dungeons and caves, in all manner of books and other media. But the hobby isn't really survival. It's supposed to be fun. People talk about a pile of shame in this hobby a lot, and sometimes people call it a pile of potential, which has a nicer ring to it, but it's still a pile. What it refers to is the pile of unbuilt and unpainted miniatures, frequently still in the box, sometimes even still in the shrink wrap, that many hobbyists have on a shelf, under their bed, in a closet, in their basement, and many times it's the result of your goblin brain driving your buying habits. Now, this pile isn't inherently bad. Sometimes you can deal with a pile. I have a pretty huge pile of potential because, A, I've been in the hobby for like a really long time and stuff just seems to accumulate. And two, sometimes companies send me miniatures, but I do buy stuff as well. Most recently, I bought some Judge Dredd and Steel Rift with the little mechs. I like those a lot. And then D, I have a big basement that can hold a lot of stuff. However, it definitely seems like that basement is getting a bit smaller. For a lot of folks, the pile can make them feel bad. Maybe it takes up too much space and you don't have a lot of like storage area to keep it where you live. Or maybe it's just a lot of money spent, like in the case of Games Workshop, of course, that's just sitting there and that's what makes you feel bad. Or maybe you look at this, pile of potential as wasted potential because you're not actually doing anything with it. That can make you feel bad too. For whatever reason, the pile can make you feel bad because, as it turns out, you're not actually a goblin. Goblins love their pile of treasures, right? It makes them happy in their little goblin hearts. I've never read a story or watched a movie where a goblin was unhappy and conflicted about how huge his pile of treasures was. You know what I mean? But while the goblin brain can take over when you're at the game store or on the website, credit card in hand, it's your human brain that has to deal with the aftermath. So what's the solution? Obviously, you have to determine how negatively your pile of potential is affecting you. It's maybe, fine as it is right now, or it might already be a bit of a problem. It all kind of depends on your situation, and everyone is different. What might be good right now could become an issue after a bunch of new releases for the game that you like, or maybe, when some old Kickstarters come in. You might want to sell stuff, trade stuff, or maybe even give it away. But that's dealing with your goblin brain after the fact, right? You're getting rid of the aftermath. The downside is that the money's already been spent, and then you have to spend a bunch of time trying to sell the stuff like on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or whatever to try to recoup some of your costs. Or you have to try to trade for other stuff, which then, of course, just makes your pile mostly the same size. And that also takes more time as well. The trick is to try and stop your goblin brain from acquiring a bunch of miniatures that you really don't need before you do that. One of the easiest ways is to force yourself to take time before buying something. You're at the local game store, right? And you see something on the shelf that you really, really, really want, Make yourself wait, maybe a day, maybe a few days, maybe a week. Give yourself a cooling off period to really think about it and why you think that you might want it. You may have great reasons, whatever, but if you take some time, you'll be amazed at how frequently you can overcome your goblin brain by forcing yourself to wait before you reach for your wallet. Another way, maybe not as effective as the previous idea, is to try to get your grasping, slavering goblin brain to convince the rest of your brain what project this new purchase will be used for, right? Are these models that you're looking at, are they going to help beef up your current army in some way? Will they be used as a new skirmish team for a certain game so that you can teach others how to play it and get them into the hobby themselves, right? Gaming advocacy, that kind of stuff, Or is it just shiny? Lastly, make your goblin brain figure out when you'll actually use the new thing. There needs to be a schedule, right? After I paint the current project that I'm working on now, then I'll do this terrain piece that I really, really want to buy here at the store or whatever, for example, so that I can then use this terrain piece in this game and that game, whatever, that kind of stuff. Buying something so that you can paint it, someday is real goblin brain behavior. And getting out of that habit of listening to your goblin brain, it's going to stop your pile from getting unmanageable. If you really need to get that goblin brain out of your head, then what you should do is use all three of these techniques that I just mentioned, right? Make the goblin brain kind of explain exactly what this thing will be used for, right? In your gaming. And then it must explain exactly when it'll get constructed and painted and all that kind of stuff. And then, and this is the hardest, then make that little goblin wait for a few days and see how everything comes out. Doing all of that will slow down how much money you waste on minis that you'll never use. I hope these tips help you to slow the growth of your pile of potential. I've been putting them to some use myself over the last year, and it's kind of helped. Hopefully it'll help you even more. What other kinds of things do you do to try to help stop your pile of potential from growing more and becoming a problem? How do you quiet your goblin brain when it comes to new shinies? Let us all know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you'd hit the like button down below. It helps spread things around, get more people to see it, maybe hopefully kind of chase out a few more goblin brains. Also, subscribe to see more videos every single Friday, and thanks for watching.